Hey everybody, it's been a while. I got sick, my dog got sick, lots of people got sick, and I couldn't make any videos. So in the meantime, I'm going to do a quick little thoughts video on Star Wars Episode 7. But don't worry, there's some stuff coming down the pipeline, just needs a little bit more time. So, Star Wars Episode 7, with spoilers. It's been long enough. So you open up to a very traditional Star Wars opening crawl. Luke Skywalker has gone missing. Oh great, that's the plot that I wanted, for everyone to immediately fail after Episode 6. So we're introduced to the new Stormtroopers. They're just called Stormtroopers, they don't even have a new name. As well as alongside Princess Leia's #1 pilot. She's still a member of the Rebellion, though they're the Resistance now. Why is there Resistance? Well, the movie's not going to tell you. Anyways, this #1 pilot has to go to some desert planet with some important information about Luke. There's a map to where Luke is after he went missing. I don't really get how that happened and the movie doesn't explain it, so I guess I'll just accept that for some reason the evil new empire has this information for some reason. Anyways, he's there alongside the incredibly remarkable BB-8, which is adorable. It's just a dog robot, basically. And pretty quickly on, you'll be introduced to this movie's villain, Kylo Ren, who looks a lot like Darth Vader. Ace pilot guy, Poe something, he decides to try and shoot this guy who looks kind of like Darth Vader. And he stops the bolt in midair, which looks pretty cool. And that's also just where I got my first theory going, because you never really see anything like that happen in any other Star Wars media, so it doesn't really seem like the Force. So my first immediate thought is that this guy isn't actually a Sith, and he's not actually a Force user. He's just faking it with some like technology or something like that, I don't know. But that's based on the idea that they'd go in a different direction with this movie. So Poe is kidnapped, but marketable BB-8 droid gets to escape. Alongside this, you're introduced to Finn, the main character, as far as you know. He's the guy who's notable for causing controversy a while ago because you can't have a black stormtrooper. They're clones, even though they stopped using clones, but no one actually bothered to look into that. And that's why they make this little pass at clone troopers. A lot of people read this as a jab at the prequels, even though it's not really any way to read it as that if you really think about it. But I'm pretty sure that was just there to clarify that little plot point, because in the original trilogy they never do say that stormtroopers aren't clones. You never even see them take off their masks, for that matter. So it turns out, and you have to read the book apparently to find out about this, but Finn is actually a super amazing stormtrooper who's just good at everything, except for one thing. So basically they IGN'd him and gave him 7.8 too much empathy, and that's why he couldn't kill some random people that they wanted to kill. By the way, actually having the stormtroopers kill people and showing it made them a lot more threatening than stormtroopers have ever been before. So Finn, with his newly discovered empathy after being deployed the first time and not wanting to kill anyone, knows he's in trouble and he wants to escape from the New Order, which is I believe the Third Reich. He finds and rescues Poe, the ace pilot guy, and Poe's like, you need a pilot, don't you? And he's like, yeah. So they don't really want to be together, they just have to by necessity. Then, as they're escaping, they start to kind of connect a bit because Finn is really happy with how he's shooting things, which is weird considering that he didn't want to shoot things, and that's the whole reason why he was in trouble. And then Poe is all like, yeah, I know, good job, great shot, kid, that was a 1 in a million. And then they crash. So at this point, Finn assumes that Poe is dead, and he goes and tries to find someone, I guess. And then he stumbles on Rey, the other character. She's not the main character though, in case you're wondering. So we're introduced to Rey as she works a day to day to make instant gray cupcake things. It's actually kind of cool. I like this little bit where they show that you can make this instant food in the Star Wars universe. That's something you really rarely get to see, is the technology being used in a mundane way. Anyways, Rey is doing scavenging work for 1/4 portion. And by pure chance, she just stumbles onto BB-8 and then by extension stumbles onto Finn. And Finn lies and says, oh, I'm part of the Resistance. And BB-8's like, well, no, you're not. But BB-8 can't talk, which is kind of a fundamental flaw. But I don't get how AI works in Star Wars. For some reason, BB-8 knows that Finn isn't part of the Resistance and Rey can understand BB-8, and yet I don't know, BB-8's not programmed to immediately be like, hey, by the way, this guy, like, he has a conscience and then like an actual, like, he can be convinced, which makes, like, what's the point of having a droid at that point? Anyways, barely any time passes before immediately you're thrown into another action scene. The New Order finds them and starts trying to blow them up. I kind of compare this to, imagine if in episode 4, Luke was staring at those twin suns that makes that amazing John Williams music plays, and then just suddenly a Star Destroyer comes in and starts blowing things up, and Luke has to run away with Ben Kenobi in an action sequence. Because right off the bat, this movie, even though it has definitely some good moments, it can't take a moment to breathe. They're running and they try to escape, and what do they stumble across? The Millennium Falcon. And this is probably one of the most tasteful throwbacks to episode 4, 5, and 6 that they have in this. And they got a pretty funny joke going where Rey thinks that is junk. So, Rey and Finn jump into the ship, and Rey is immediately able to fly it. Oh, by the way, Rey lives on Jakku and was abandoned by her parents. I imagine there's a deleted scene where she has a locket with half a heart that fits together with someone else's locket. Anyways, so she's never been off the planet. She wants to stay there. She wants to go back there if she ever does leave it, because she knows that someone's going to come back for her. Despite this, she just can magically fly this 2-pilot ship on her first try. And that's not a problem. Why would that be a problem? But if it was a problem, it'd be kind of weird if she could just, this person doesn't want to even leave the planet, learned how to fly a spaceship. Anyways, so after they leave the planet, as far as I'm concerned, this is when the movie really starts to go downhill. First, the first thing that they randomly stumble upon is Han Solo and Chewie, and they say that trailer shot line about how they're home because he lost the Millennium Falcon, I guess. You know what else he lost? His relationship with Leia. Like, this is something that actually really bothers me about the movies that I don't see anyone else bring up, and the fact that nobody even got like a few moments of their happy ending that episode 6 promised. Like, this is jumping ahead a bit, but Luke went to train Jedi and failed immediately, so he went into exile for about 20 years. Han and Leia got together and had a kid, and that failed, so they just left for like 20 years or something. Like, geez, couldn't anyone succeed? What, did Lando at least get out of this okay? Anyways, because you have BB-8 and Finn is still somehow convincing at least Rey, I guess, that he's part of the Resistance, they go to a forest planet where there's this bar that has this kind of cool looking alien thing, and she can look at people's eyes and find out about them. And she has Luke's lightsaber for some reason, not his green lightsaber, his original Darth Vader / Anakin lightsaber. The one that was supposed to fall down a pit into the sky of the Cloud City and really shouldn't be retrievable. But I guess that was retconned in the new Darth Vader comic, where he just has that lightsaber now. He gets all mad, like, oh, Ben Kenobi, he gave him my lightsaber, how dare he? Also in that new continuity, apparently Vader goes back to Tatooine at some point, so that's kind of weird. So then this forest planet is then attacked by the First Order, so it's starting to become a bit of a trend, and this is it's weird because they have that lightsaber and Rey touches it and gets this vision, and it's a very, very distinct, clear vision, not like anything we've seen in the other movies. Even like Anakin's vision in the prequels were really vague and blurry, and they were just a scene. They weren't like trying to be symbolic and have her in a ship that's collapsing and stuff. So that's kind of off. And it really sets in this idea of a prophecy, and I'm already, like, people hated the prophecy in the prequels, but this just seems even worse. But anyways, Rey is like, oh no, not responsibility, and she runs away into the forest, and she gets kidnapped by Kylo Ren. Meanwhile, Finn tries out that lightsaber and fights Traitor, the guy who calls him Traitor, who everyone calls TR-8, R or something like that. And this actually is another thing where it's like, oh man, stormtroopers, they actually can fight a guy with a lightsaber now because they have these electrical baton things. So it's like, oh man, is this like, are these troopers really like really good? And they can actually hold their own even against like a Jedi? Although, that actually reminds me of another thing I forgot to mention. When they make that jab about the clone troopers, they have never once been able to properly explain why they stopped using clones. Like, it doesn't make any sense. The new First Order stormtroopers, they're all apparently orphaned children that were raised like to be awesome soldier people. And like, how is that more efficient than having like the best soldier ever cloned with accelerated growth and conditioned to be completely loyal? Like, how does that, like, how do you even have enough random orphan children in the galaxy to have an actual like intergalactic army that can like hold its own against this new republic that apparently exists, but there's still resistance, but also the New Order is a thing. And the New Order isn't like the New Order, apparently that's not the Empire. It's a new thing based on the Empire. That just, how did that happen? Anyways, this is where all the trailer shots happen, where Finn has his lightsaber, so that they can have that marketing to make it seem like he's gonna be the Jedi, because that was a twist that was definitely necessary. It wouldn't make people mad by having a bunch of toys based on him instead of Rey, the actual main character. Anyways, now that a woman is involved and she's in trouble, Finn no longer wants to, oh yeah, I forgot that was a thing. Finn didn't want to be involved in this. He wants to run away from the First Order because he thinks they're so evil and bad and there's no way to stand up to them. But then Finn finds out that Rey is in trouble, and now he wants to risk everything to destroy the First Order because girl and love interest, I guess. So they go and they find the Resistance and Leia, and the Han and her are, I guess, on good terms. She's like, oh, you changed your hair. I get it, because curly hair. Also, Poe survived, and now him and Finn are acting like they're like the best friends ever, even though they spent about 20 seconds together. You can only expect that in episode 8 they're gonna be married and have 4 kids. Anyways, this is when I don't know exactly when this happens, I kind of forget now, but there's another Death Star. Only they say, no, it's not another Death Star. This is a Death Star that blows up 4 planets. It's also 4 times the size of the Death Star. So we have a 3rd Death Star. Like, just, this is so bad. They couldn't think of any other kind of threat. Like, where do you even go from this? It's like, oh yes, in the first episode, they had a thing that could blow up a bunch of planets. What are you gonna do in episodes 8 and 9? They're gonna have an even bigger Death Star? You're gonna have a solar system destroying Death Star? Like, there's so much wrong with this. So this Death Star is a planet. And immediately Han's just like, hey, why don't we blow it up? Because it has a weakness probably. And they're like, oh yeah, no, there it is right there. Yeah, let's blow it up. But there's a shield, so let's light speed dash into it. So Han and Finn and stuff go and infiltrate to take down the shield so that some X-Wing pilots can blow it up, because that's what X-Wing pilots do, I guess. What happened to other wings? There's no like A-Wings or anything. There's these black X-Wings now. There's like 5 X-Wings, by the way. Like, there's this line that I love. It shows, it's like, they're like, 2 X-Wings have been destroyed. That's half our fleet. And like, obviously it's meant to be like, oh, at this point, half our fleet has been destroyed. But the way they say it's like, oh no, not 2 of them. We only sent 4. And that does seem like kind of a trend going on here. Oh yeah, by the way, the big thing they're racing against is that after this planet destroying thing absorbs a sun, it'll blow up the rebel base planet because, yeah. And there's this really on-the-nose thing. Oh man, I completely forgot. I gotta talk about Rey and Kylo and stuff. So Rey's been kidnapped and Kylo's like, oh, I'm gonna use my mind powers to make it so that I can know what the secrets are. And then Rey is like, actually, I'm even better at the Force than you, and I'm gonna read your mind instead. Oh, you have a weird you have a weird inferiority complex about Darth Vader. He's like, what? No, how did you figure out that my mind powers? You must have the Force. So Kylo, oh yeah, by the way, Kylo's been having these random temper tantrums too. Like he like gets mad and takes out his lightsaber and blows up computers, which you think those would be important or something. Like them, oh no, we just lost our guidance. We can't even use this ship anymore. But I guess that's not important. So anyways, now that Rey is in the ship, alone because Kylo ran off because it's like, oh no, she insulted Darth Vader, so this other stormtrooper is watching her and she uses the Jedi mind trick on him. I mean, he's actually Roger Craig Smith, Daniel Craig, whatever, I don't care. So Rey's like, hey, let me go, and he comes over and is like, hey, mind tricks don't work on me. And then she's like, well, let me go. It's like, oh, okay, I guess I will. And it's like, at first I thought the twist was gonna be that not only are these stormtroopers well trained to like fight against a lightsaber, but maybe they can like kind of resist force power, like they're trained to not be mentally weak. But no, it just works fine. And it was pretty funny, but okay. So Rey can use the Force because, yeah, how can she use the Force so well and so easily? Well, that's not a problem. It's definitely not a problem. But if it was, I'd point out that Luke took forever to learn how to use the Force. Like, it was a training process they had to go through over years to even like use basic Force powers. And Rey just found out the Force is even real recently. Like, she thought it was Legends because somehow that happened again. Anyways, so Rey escapes and is trying to... Oh yeah, that's another thing, actually. There's this pretty fun little subversion they do at the very start where Rey is being harassed by some, I don't know, alien things. And Finn goes and tries to rescue her, but before he can even get there, she's already beaten them all up. Yeah, anyways. So, Rey is trying to find a way out of the new Super Death Star or something. And meanwhile, Finn is trying to rescue Rey, and Han and Chewie, they want to blow up the generators for the shield so that the X-Wings can blow up the planet. Kind of scaled things up. Remember when it was a big deal? It's like, oh no, they blew up Alderaan. Ben can feel them, like millions of voices scream out. Now literally the good guys are blowing up the planet because the bad guys blow up even more planets. Anyways, in between all of this, there's also a thing where Kylo is talking to this giant new super emperor who is like, oh, you should kill your dad because... And meanwhile, Kylo has this thing going on where it's like, oh, I'm being tempted by the light side. It's just so hard to be evil. I really, really, really want to be bad, but I just can't. Which really kind of undermines Darth Vader's whole thing where it's like, oh man, it's so hard to turn someone back from the dark side because it's just such a slippery slope and they just become so evil and it's so hard to redeem them. But meanwhile, this guy's like, oh, I really want to be part of the dark side, but I'm just being tempted by the light so much. If only there was a way for me to be evil. Oh yeah, and he has Darth Vader's helmet. Good for a trailer shot. So anyways, yeah, when he's saying that he should kill his dad, he means Han Solo, because Kylo Ren is actually Ben Solo. He went to summer school Jedi daycare and got mad, so he became a Jedi Sith Knight, whatever. I don't know, is he a Sith? Anyways. Also, when he takes off his hat, he looks exactly like Hayden Christensen, but with black hair. And, you know, this is something that bugs me. Everyone's like, oh man, yeah, this is what Anakin should have been in the prequels. Are you kidding me? If you had added the stuff that Ben has going, Ben Solo, if you added all of this to the prequels, it'd be even more of a joke. Imagine if Anakin had like random tantrums and blew things up with his lightsaber when he got mad. Imagine if he was like, oh, I'm just being tempted by the dark side so much. Please show me the way. Just like, he'd be even worse. Like, we didn't get a very good Anakin in the prequels, but this is, like, people are complaining that this, like, how is this not worse, I guess is what I'm getting at. Especially because people complained that Anakin in 3 movies did this whole thing to Darth Vader as a character. They did that in 1 movie with Kylo Ren, where they had this intimidating character, and then they tried to make him nuanced and interesting with this. And he's basically just a really, really poorly executed Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. And like, I wouldn't even really have that much of a problem if there wasn't at least some other bigger threat, like another villain to kind of stand over and be like, oh yeah, no, this guy can be the interesting, tormented villain because we have this other guy who will really follow through and kill things and be bad and stuff. But they really don't have that. They want to put all their eggs on Kylo Ren. There are other villains, like there's this guy who screams a lot and does lots of Nazi sound-alike things, and they have the Nazi bro fist instead of the Heil Hitler thing. And then there's Captain Phasma, who is in this really cool looking armor, and he appears for about 2 seconds and never actually does anything. Who is apparently going to be more prominent in the next movie, but we'll get to that later. Anyways, this all comes to a climax where Finn and Rey are in a balcony, and Han is on this little like place where there's like a bridge in between these 2 things with no safety as far as I can tell. And he finds Kylo. And meanwhile, Poe is fighting on the top of the Death Star, new Super Death Star, and saying, oh, as long as we have hope, or as long as we have light, we have hope, because the sun's slowly getting destroyed. And so the sun is slowly fading away, and meanwhile, Kylo is like, oh, can you help me, Han Solo? You're going to make it so I'm a good guy again. And then Han's like, oh yeah, no, I'll help you. And then Kylo stabs him as the sun goes out. So that's the big death. Han Solo dies after, I guess, apparently, what's-his-face, his actor, Harrison Ford, wanted him to die in episode 6. And so that's the ending of Han and Leia relationship, I guess. Like, They discover they're in love in episode 5, reunite 3 years later in episode 6, and then they get together, have a kid, the kid turns evil, so they leave each other for 20 years, they meet up again for the first time, and then Han Solo dies. And you can see that Leia is still Force sensitive because she's like, oh, I can feel him. Meanwhile, on this like other planet, why can she, like, that's the thing, Force is so inconsistent in all the movies, but it's like, okay, so Leia can sense that Han died over there, but why can't Vader sense things planets apart? Like, why can't he sense where Obi-Wan is or something like that? Yeah, I don't know. So then the planet starts to explode and collapse and stuff, and Kylo goes after Finn and Rey. Finn doesn't die, he gets slashed in the spine, so he should be dead, but he's not because Star Wars. Because he tries to fight, and then Luke/Anakin's lightsaber gets stuck in the snow. And Kylo is like, that is my birthright. He tries to force pull it to him. Meanwhile, Rey is like lying crumpled on the ground or something. I don't know. And so it takes me a really long time. It's like, oh, it's shaking. What's going to happen? Why is it spending like a minute on this lightsaber? What's going to happen? Is there going to be some huge twist? So Rey summons it. And it's like, wow, that would have been an amazing twist if we didn't already know she could use the Force and didn't already know she has a connection to the lightsaber. Like, man, then it would have actually been a twist, and they didn't need to spend 5-10 minutes on this lightsaber just being, oh, is it gonna go? Where's it gonna go? Is he gonna be able to summon it? Also, not that this is a problem or anything, but why can Rey effectively summon the lightsaber better than an actual trained Force user? That's not it's not a problem or anything, that would be sexist, but yeah, it's kind of weird how she can just do all these things that other actual trained people can't. Oh, by the way, Kylo got shot in the leg by Chewie, who didn't die, surprisingly. I thought he was going to have his, like, berserker charge thing where he goes and takes out 100 stormtroopers but then gets shot as well or something. But he didn't, so that's good. Didn't have to get gratuitous with it. So yeah, now Rey has a lightsaber and she fights Kylo while Kylo keeps punching himself in the chest because he's hurt. It's a pretty meh fight, which I think would have been made a lot better if they'd actually talked at some point. But instead they just do some very basic, actually I really like the description I heard, they call it medieval. I think it's a very medieval sword fight, which isn't very exciting to watch when there's nothing else really going on. They're just running through a snowy forest, and sometimes they'll slash at each other. And Rey's obviously on the defense, and Kylo keeps pushing her back, and then he's like, you should join the dark side because it's cool. And she's like, wait, the Force? As if she just suddenly discovered that the Force is a thing or something. She didn't realize he'd been using the Force the entire time. And suddenly she starts to really push back and really defeat Kylo for some reason. Like, people always say, oh, it's because he was injured. But it's like, well, then why couldn't she do that before? Why did she be told that the Force... Like, why did she have to say, oh, the Force? And then suddenly that's when she could do it. She could fight back. I don't know, seems weird. Anyways, in the end, they escape. They get like separated by a massive land because everything's falling apart. They go into the Millennium Falcon and escape. The Emperor's like, hey, Kylo and this other Hitler guy, you should go and leave because this is gonna blow up. The new Emperor is super lame, by the way. He looks awful, he sounds awful. He's on this giant hologram chair thing. I don't know, it just seems dumb to me. That's about it. Then they come back to the Rebel base. R2-D2, who's been deactivated for years for some reason, reactivates for no real reason, reveals that he has the missing piece of the map to Luke Skywalker, which seems like a really obvious thing you'd probably want to check, but I don't know. Leia is probably sad about Han, I guess, I don't know. But then there's good news because they can find Luke, and for some reason only Rey is going on. Like, Leia doesn't even bother coming after all this. Like, you'd think that'd be important. She maybe want to meet up with him again or something. And then the movie ends with Rey holding out Luke's lightsaber, and Luke is standing in a grave or something, and he has a beard and he looks kind of sad. And then credits. So, first off, what happened to John Williams? This music in the movie is so mediocre. Like, it's not even bad, it's well composed, but I can't remember a single song besides maybe Rey's theme, which sounds like a Harry Potter song. The way they constantly reuse stuff is so, it really, really takes me out of it. Like, I've heard people say, like, oh, well, this is just them proving that they can do it. They can make a real Star Wars movie, and then they're going to go and do original stuff. And that's the thing, a lot of the people who speak positively of this movie are basically saying that, oh, don't worry, episode 8, they're going to just be so great because they're going to fix all these problems and stuff, and they're going to really try. It's like, I don't even know why you'd assume that based on this. It's so lazy what they've done. And like the only way they can really go up in scale now is if they do have another super Death Star. Or a super Death Star. They already had a super Death Star. Anyways. But it's just really not a good standalone movie as a result. Like, it on its own, it doesn't really have focus. It just sort of sets things up for future movies, which everyone's like, oh no, trust me, it's going to be great. And I don't really want my enjoyment of a movie to rely on the fact that I believe that in 2 years a movie's going to come out that makes it all worth it. And the planets are really lazy too. They're just forest, snow forest, desert, forest with a base in it, and Death Star. Like, I don't know, like people are like, oh, you just want the super overly CG planets of the prequels. And it's like, on one hand, kind of yeah, because CG's gotten a lot better in the last 10 years. So you could have some really cool looking places. But even if you want to be all organic and just have these same basic Earth planets, there are other places than forests and snow forests and deserts. Like, I don't know, why not have a beach planet or something? I don't know, have an ocean planet. Have something different than this. Even like, they briefly showed the planets that were being destroyed by the super Death Star, and they just look like London. It's really weird. Like, there's like little like sci-fi elements to them, but they have like stone lanterns for some reason. It's really weird. So I think it was really stupid that they focused so much on Finn, because Finn's a really enjoyable character to watch. Like, I think his acting is second to none in that movie, besides I guess maybe Harrison Ford, because he's seasoned pro and all that. But they focused too much on Harrison Ford, or Han Solo, in the movie, because he doesn't really do anything, doesn't really grow as a character. He's just there to die, basically. Rey is also entertaining to watch, especially in the early half of the movie. She has a lot of really funny, enjoyable lines to say, but they don't do enough with her before they really start to focus on her and have her only do cool stuff in the second half of the movie. Like, all she does is actions at that point. She barely really says anything. Her personality is kind of dropped off the face of the earth. I wish the movie was so much slower paced, because the first half, it had its little like, off and on problems, but if the entire thing had been paced like that, this movie would have been amazing. And I realized that, not so much for myself, but I feel like the movie itself needed to be amazing, because they want to launch a Marvel Cinematic Universe type thing with Star Wars. And I think that to launch that, you need to have a really strong start. You need to really impress people. And yet everyone I've seen, even if they loved it, everyone always loves it. And I think it's a perfectly good movie, like in terms of action and stuff, even if some of the scenes are kind of bland. Like, there's like oh no, this huge action scene, the big thing they do is the Millennium Falcon tilts itself slightly so they can shoot a target. Say what you will about the prequels, they actually had like things going on, individual moment to moment action in their action scenes, even if they were kind of cheesy. Anyways, I think that the ending was way too abrupt with Luke. That could have been saved, honestly. I don't know if I like the idea that the new Super Death Star being destroyed, because, again, where do you go from there? Meanwhile, it could have been very interesting and very different if they had failed and they had just run away, basically. And now there's this new Super Death Star that's just roaming the galaxy that can destroy anything. The rebels had to really be on the run. By the way, they just sort of, in a split second, when they destroy those planets, destroy the New Republic, which is, again, it's like, oh, so Leia also didn't really get her happy ending after all that. She, after trying to rebuild the Republic that she was the whole point in the first place, that's just gone. And I hear people being like, oh yeah, that's awesome, they destroyed the politics so that it can't be like the prequels. And it's like, it doesn't have to focus on the politics, but the fact that there isn't even a New Republic now really lowers the stakes to a point where it's like, why even bother? Like, you can barely start a New Republic without someone making a planet-destroying weapon and blowing everything up. And like, now there's nothing really to return to. You can't be like, oh yeah, and once the good guys defeat the bad guys in episode 9 or whatever, then the Republic can really start to get going, because the Republic's gone now. There's only the New Order left, and the New Order isn't even like the dominant thing in the galaxy anymore. There's some new thing. Where do they get the money, by the way? How do they, like, that's something apparently that's in the books, is that the New Order and the New Republic have a tentative peace treaty going on because neither of them are strong enough, I guess. I don't know. How did the New Order manage to how did they manage to hollow out a planet and turn that into a Death Star without anybody noticing? Without, they don't even have, like, the secret data they get isn't even to try and get information about this new Death Star. It's about finding Luke. I don't even know what finding Luke matters. Like, why do you have to find Luke? Why do they both want to find Luke? Why is the Return of the Jedi such a huge thing? Also, Episode 6 was called The Return of the Jedi. I guess they didn't do a very good job returning. Why is this called The Force Awakens? Because it awakened in Rey, I guess. But why is that so significant? It didn't really change anything. I don't know. There's two things that I thought about this movie. One of them is it feels like a Star Wars fan film. Like, if someone had showed me just the desert part at the start and said, oh, this is some student project they made to show off their special effects, I'd be like, oh yeah, you know, that's pretty kind of cool. And then if someone had been like, oh yeah, someone at Disney really liked that short film, so they gave them full budget to make this movie, I'd believe it, because it feels like such a fanfic thing to be like, oh yeah, no, there's an even more super secret emperor who was around during the Clone Wars who has now taken his place as the even more super evil Supreme Chancellor Emperor, and he made an even bigger Death Star with even more evil stormtroopers. Like, everything is just like an even more version of something that the other movies did, but the movies that came before were so much better paced and had such a better sense of stakes. Like, I feel like I've seen everything there is to see about Finn and Rey. They're entertaining to watch, but I don't really have any investment because the only thing left is to reveal who their parents are. And everyone's saying, oh no, they're going to do it. They're going to be so tasteful. They're not even going to reveal what Rey's parents are. They are. I don't know why anyone could go into this movie and say, oh yeah, no, they're not going to do the most obvious cliche thing. Because that's the only way for it to go. It's same with how people are like, oh yeah, I bet Kylo Ren's going to be irredeemably evil. No, he's not. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made him this pretty. Like, I don't know. Everyone's assumptions basically come down to just thinking that they're going to do something really cool and original. And if they wanted me to fill me with confidence about them doing something cool and original with this, they should have done something cool and original with this movie. And so the other thing is, people are really insistent that this is just them proving that they can make a real Star Wars movie, and that then they'll go and do original stuff, but this is just to make people know that they can do it. But it's like, if Star Wars Episode 1 had followed a lot of the same plot threads of the original trilogy, it probably would have been a better movie too, because it's stealing from really good source material, but it still would have been worse, and it wouldn't have done anything to stop Episode 2 from being awful. Because stealing good ideas doesn't actually do anything to prove you can make good original ideas. And that's what people seem to be basing this on. It's like, oh yeah, see, they executed ideas that had been done 30 years ago really well, so clearly that means they can make original ideas that are just as good, right? That's how it works. And I'm not gonna lie, the optimism about Star Wars Episode 7 is what's really pushed me into thinking my problems are more than they actually are. On its own, it's a serviceable movie, but the annoying thing is that it's annoying to think about. And I never really ran into that problem before with Star Wars. Obviously, you don't apply super logic to Star Wars, you just sort of take what happens as what happens. But this just, every time I think about something, it starts to fall apart. And it's because they don't spend enough time actually making anything matter. They just want to skip right to the part where it gets good. Like how I was talking about with the relationship between Poe and Finn. They spend 20 seconds together, and the next time they meet, they're just broing it out like they've known each other all their lives. I don't know if, like, apparently I've heard that that's something that Abrams is kind of bad for, is skipping character development to get to the part that he wants. But that just is the entire feel of the movie to me. It's like, we're just gonna jump right to the part where it has the scene that I really want, and we're not gonna earn it. And that's kind of the thing. Episode 7 just feels unearned, whether it's the hype it gets or the actual plot points in the movie. That's the vibe I get from all of it. I hope Rogue One is better, honestly. I hope, and they're doing a Han Solo movie, doing a Boba Fett movie. I'm just waiting for the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie. Ewan McGregor is just awesome. I want to see more of him, but I don't know. I'd be really happy if it turned out everyone was right and episode 8 is actually just really good, really original. I just don't know why everyone's so sure it's going to happen. But we'll see. It's 2 years off. We've got a million other movies to worry about too, so one of them will be amazing. It's just law of averages. Until then, see you later.